Hey guys, so if you followed my Instagram lately, you're probably gonna know that I'm working on a sub 250 freestyle platform, a 4-inch platform loosely based on the MicroLongRange, but really designed for being a pure breed freestyle quad that has the objective to handle like a 5-inch 6S quad, freestyle quad, a classic freestyle quad, but maybe let's take a step back for a second. Let's talk a bit about the future of freestyle and FPV, and I think honestly the future is going to be sub 250. First and foremost, for legal reasons, it's just in many countries, especially the US, it's going to be much more convenient to have something sub 250. And second, also for practical reasons, I think small and light quads are just very convenient. Less noise, less danger, draw less attention, they're cheaper, easier to carry around. So it does have quite a lot of advantages. So I think the future is sub 250, and I don't think it's bad at all. I think we can get pretty good or even darn good performance out of sub 250. So before we dive into the setup, let me just show you how it performs, and let's just see whether the sub 250 future will be a dystopian future or a future we can look forward to. Alright, so what you're seeing here is the Vista DJI setup carrying a naked GoPro 7. So it's over 250 grams with the naked GoPro. A light analog setup could be sub 250, still carrying a naked GoPro. But I mean, that's not really the point I wanted to talk about. What I want to talk about is this flight performance. So as you can see, I mean, personally, I would have a hard time telling whether this is a 5-inch setup or something else, a sub 250. This thing really does perform like you're used to using your 5-inch freestyle setup. Really fast, you can really throw it around. So as you can see, if I punch up, I really have a momentum I can play with. So it just keeps going into the direction you throw it at. It just doesn't immediately stop in the air, or it has this sort of weird floatiness where it just falls very slowly. It does fall a bit slow, but it's really not nearly as bad as on a sub 250 5-inch. Alright, now after spreading a bit of optimism about the future, let's go back to the past and let's actually see where I'm coming from, and let me tell you about the development process that has led to this 4-inch platform. So where I'm coming from, obviously, I think most of you are gonna know, is MicroLongRange, a sub 250 long range platform. And I got the question quite a lot whether this is capable of doing freestyle or how good it is at doing freestyle. And honestly, I mean, it's really not bad at freestyling, but you sort of get a feeling that it's not designed to do freestyle, and it really isn't. It's got rather small low kV motors. This is mostly where all this efficiency is coming from. But also this is really in stark contrast to what you would want for freestyling. For freestyling, you want a ton of punch and power, and you want your quad to be extremely locked and in control, and all of this needs to be sort of sacrificed to get flight time and smooth cruising ability. But to be honest, I had the idea for quite a while to maybe do a freestyle version of the MicroLongRange. So, you know, something that sacrifices a bit of the flight time, still has like GPS and all the long range capabilities, but is a bit better for flight time. You know, maybe has a true X frame, has a props in view, but this also is good for flight performance. And this is why I went ahead and modified one of these frames here and put some slightly bigger motors on there, slightly higher kV. These are 1504.5, 2950 kV, while on the MicroLongRange classically we have 1404, 27 to 2800 kV. And honestly, I didn't like the results. So, I mean, while these are actually quite nice motors here, the Brother Hobbies, honestly, it was not a very big change compared to a 1404 spec Dead Cat MicroLongRange. It just wasn't that different. And I sort of pivoted and decided that what I really want to do is build a pure breed freestyle platform. Not something that isn't really long range, isn't really freestyle, not good at anything in particular. What I really wanted was something that handles like this here, like a full 6S 5-inch freestyle platform. And to be honest, I knew it wasn't going to be 5-inch. I mean, I tested a ton of sub 250 5-inch setups. It's been like over almost 1.5 years that I tested the first sub 250 5-inch toothpick style quad with an all-in-one, and I never really liked them. To be honest, they're always floaty. It's just a matter of disc load in that case. They always feel sort of floaty. If you go off the throttle, they sort of fall very slowly. It's a bit weird. You cannot really throw them. You don't have that momentum to throw the quad around. And there's another issue. It's 5-inch props. It's rather big motors like the 25s on here. It pulls quite a lot of amps. So if you have an aggressive setup under ideal conditions, it works well with something like a 750 or 850 or a 556s. But if it's cold, if your battery isn't brand new, you're really at the limit. You're going to feel the battery sag quite a lot. And what I also didn't like is it just feels a bit overpowered. You have like a less than 10% hover point. So I thought like these big 5-inch props and the extra power just makes things makes it worse rather than better. It's just really fast, but it's also really floaty. It just doesn't have the characteristics I really wanted in a freestyle quad. So I knew I still had to go with the 4-inch platform, and but not just slightly modify the MicroLongRange to really rethink the whole concept. So the first step was to redesign the frame. Honestly, that was pretty simple because I didn't have to change all that much. So this is one of the, let me just remove the ugly battery pad here. This is one of the prototypes. It's not going to be the final design, and just to announce this now, this will be published as sold as the Recon for FR. So the freestyle version of the Recon 4 that's also going to be released MicroLongRange. So this is the prototype I have. Not going to be the final frame. Going to be some changes in the design, but this is what I was using for now. So 4mm arms. This thing is really super stiff. It's also not a super light frame. 4mm arms, 6mm wide. This thing is quite sturdy. Really quite sturdy. It's a 46-gram frame, which also isn't super light for 4-inch. It weighs more than Kebab FPV's 5-inch frame, and almost as much as Oh My God's 5-inch freestyle frame, which is 49 grams if I remember correctly. So it's really built to be durable. It's a really sturdy frame. So that sort of sets the frame in terms of weight budget I have. And just like Tommy, I didn't want to compromise on durability. I could shave off some weight here. In final version, there will be it will be more like 40 grams, a bit more than 40 grams. I will shave off some weight, but really not much, because I want to have the durability. So that was a frame that was quite easy to do. Also, this thing has held up great. Didn't manage to break anything yet, but the second part was the more interesting part. So I had my 4-inch frame platform. Now I had to figure out which motors to use. And I mean, obviously, spoiler alert, you can already see the 1804s made it. These are the sizes I prefer. What else did I test? I mean, the 1504.5, obviously, as I mentioned before, too small. 2004, also something that is actually quite commonly used on 4-inch. Really a pretty good motor, even on a 4-inch. Around 17 grams for this HGLRC, 15 grams for a Brother Hobby, because this one's the Brother Hobbies have smaller bearings, but really good motors overall. But honestly, I thought this is, at this point, the advantage you get from bigger stator really tapers off. It's really quite heavier compared to an 1804. The 1804s that are going to be on the Recon 4 FR are not going to be X-Novas. It will be Recon specific motors that are quite a lot lighter. That will be around 12 grams. So it says 5 grams per motor, 20 grams in total, which is huge in terms of weight budget on a sub 250. It's like almost a naked GoPro. Really huge. So you have huge weight savings by moving from 2004 to 1804 while really not sacrificing any flight performance. It really just felt the same. The stator really doesn't help much. It even got some weird twitches when I had the big stators on there, so it seems might even be a bit too big, more difficult to tune. So weird stuff started to happening. I didn't see much benefit of moving from 1804 to 2004. So 2004 was out for me too. Last thing I tested, something many people recommended too. It's a bit old school, let's say. 1606 is a size, I mean, basically it would have been used for this like a year and a half or 2 years ago. Also not bad, a bit heavy because, I mean, also this maybe isn't the lightest design here. This Emax, it's also like 17 grams. State of volume is similar to 2004, but honestly, I didn't really like the flight characteristics of 1606. It was very fast. KV was also quite interesting with 3,300. Nice sort of middle ground between quite low and efficient and super high and powerful. But honestly, something about it didn't feel right. It was just the quad was more loose, less in control, less locked. It was just like having slightly loose sticks. Something weird about it that I didn't fully like. So obviously the 1804s were performing best. Now the second question I had to answer was which KV? So I basically tested two different sets. This one is a 3100 kV motor. It was actually already pretty powerful, very efficient, over 6 minutes, 6 to 7 minutes on a 750 lithium polymer 4S. But I was sort of missing a bit of, of punch. It just wasn't very impressive. It was very reasonable, nice throttle control and so on, but I was missing that punch. And I mean, because 4-inch is really quite light, because I can use these rather light motors and so on, I have a pretty big battery budget basically. I don't need to go to I think Tommy is using something like a 350 milliamp hour 6S, so it's ridiculously small cells. On a 4-inch, I can have a much better battery to quad ratio. So I have a 750 4S easily, and I'm still under 250. So rather big cells here on the 4S. So the battery was sort of not struggling at all. It still had a lot of punch left, a lot of amps it could deliver that 3100 kV wasn't even using. So I moved up to 3500 kV. I thought, nah, probably that's going to be a bit too high, a bit too much power, a bit too much amp draw. But then again, after testing it, it sacrificed like 1.5 minutes of flight time, but it just feels so cool. This thing is so fast, it's got so much power, and it's really like at the limit. I think more power and it would be too much. You would lose sort of that throttle resolution, and you would be at that point where many sub to 55-inch quads are, where your throttle is more like an on-off switch and it's difficult to control. It's really at the limit. It's still very good, but also very powerful. Very good control, very good power, very, very powerful. And I think it just feels absolutely great. These 3500 kV, 1804s on the bi-blade or tri-blade. I'm going to talk about props in a second. So much power, so much control. It's hard to distinguish from a 5-inch 6S, honestly, and it just performs absolutely great, as you saw in the video previously. Alright, so after picking the motors, everything else was actually a bit of a walk in the park. I mean, it was not that simple. I put a lot of thought into, weight budgets, how much battery can I get away with. Honestly, my notes look like the notes of a psychopath. Let me just quickly show this. This is all the notes I did over the testing process. But basically, I figured out if I'm using these 1804 motors, if I have a pretty sturdy 45 gram max frame, I can get away with a big 750 4S battery, which is really, I think it's like 86 grams, 86 gram battery on 160 gram quad. So using all the 250 gram budget, having a pretty big battery, that is enough for 5 minutes of aggressive freestyle flying. So no sacrificing of flight times, because honestly, anything that is below 3 minutes from here, or below 4 minutes even, is absolutely pointless. So we have a good battery to quad ratio, and we have a pretty reasonable disk load. So it's got a slight bit of floatiness you're not going to get away with, because a regular classic, let's say 600 gram all-out weight 5-inch is going to have more disk load compared to this, but this one has a more reasonable disk load compared to a 5-inch sub-250, so you can still really throw this thing around. And I mean, as you saw in the video, it's got a lot of advantages. So with this big battery, helps with flight times, helps with flight characteristics, with having momentum, being able to throw it. It's also easy to build sub 250. This one, to be honest, is a bit over 250 because it's a prototype frame. It is slightly heavier because it's got a GoPro mount on there, and also a full Immortal T. But actually, especially analog, is super easy to build sub 250. This is my analog build, by the way. This one has a KISS FC fat deck, KISS all-in-one, which honestly, it performs so well. I'm really thinking about doing a special edition running a KISS FC because it does perform so well. So because I think I'm just starting to ramble now, so I'm just going to try to summarize this. So I think 4-inch is the way to go for sub 250 freestyle for, I mean, basically 3 main reasons. Reason number 1, it's as close to a regular 5-inch 650 gram freestyle quad as it gets while being sub 250. Second, you have enough sort of weight budget for a decent sized battery. You're not gonna end up with something that only flies for 3 minutes and make you carry around 15 batteries. And third, there is sort of margin. It's especially if it's analog, you can even get away with being sub 250 with a naked GoPro if you build an light analog quad. It's just easier. On a 5-inch, you're basically gonna have to build your quad with an Excel file and calculate all the weights, and you might still end up above 250. It's just really a headache. On 4-inch, it's actually super simple. Really simple to build this sub 250. I mean, especially on analog, yeah, I'm using like an 11 or 12 grams is the weight of the VTX with 1600 milliwatts. So this is really not a very light build in terms of components, but still, I mean, it's way sub 250, super easy to build. Even the Vista version with the final frame is going to be easy to build. Sub 250. It's got, 4 motor screws, everything, steel screws everywhere, TPU parts, so you don't have to worry that much. And I think that is also one of the most important things about this concept. The third reason why I think 4-inch is the best way to go for sub 250 freestyle is it's not so difficult to build it sub 250. Anyone can do it. The Recon 4 FR is going to be right out of the box sub 250 with one of these 750 4S packs. Maybe you could even get away with an 850, depends on how much the final weight will really be of the BNF. Not 100% sure. But yeah, that's basically it. Alright, so I actually forgot to talk about props, so let's do it now. Maybe let's start with the tri-blades. The Gemfan 4023 versus the HQ T4 by 2x3, and I have to say, I mean, they have on paper not that large, they're not that different in terms of pitch, but I can tell you the Gemfan feels much more aggressive, and if you look at the blade profiles, you can see that the Gemfan is more aggressive, and the HQ prop, while it does feel very nice up to 50% throttle, because it's very low pitch, very non-aggressive, you have a pretty high RPM, and it makes your quad feel very locked and in control, and you have a very good throttle resolution up to maybe 50% throttle. If you go above 50, 60, 70%, it just starts to lack power compared to the more aggressive Gemfan prop, so you really miss top end and top speed. And it really starts to sound very weird, although they are the same weights, but this one seems to get a bit of issues with vibrations. So it starts to sound a bit weird. You can sort of get a feeling that the RPM is just too high for getting too high for this prop, especially on the 3500 kV motors that are preferred. So overall for me a bit too light in terms of pitch. The free blades jump fan really performed very well. I think these little adapter things here are quite annoying, but okay, you can also use them with a 5mm prop shaft. Was actually useful for my testing, but usually I think it's a bit annoying. These plastic things here are a bit annoying to get in here, and yeah. But performance-wise, this one was very nice, very well balanced, a bit more aggressive, so nice and fast. Also, quite a lot of grip. The most interesting comparison, I would say, is to actually the bi-blade version of it. There's also a bi-blade version of the HQ, but it was even less aggressive than the tri-blade version, so not too interesting from what I learned in my testing. So for me, it was really between these two here, the bi-blade and the tri-blade version. This is actually the prop I have on the Flywoo Explorer, and it will also be on the Recon for MicroLongRange. So surprisingly, this one does also perform very well on this Freestyle platform as well as the tri-blade version. Now, the advantage of the bi-blade version is it's very, very fast. It is noticeably faster than the tri-blade version. You have a very nice top speed, a very good acceleration. For some reason, this really does move faster. You lose a bit of grip and maybe a bit of throttle resolution. But the difference actually isn't that huge. You seem to gain more speed than you lose sort of the grip and traction of the free blade prop. So the difference in grip was quite difficult to notice actually, but the difference in speed was noticeable. So I'm at the moment tending towards actually the Gemfan bi-blade version of this 4-inch T-mount prop. And actually, I think this one is the 4024 and this one is 4023, that's how they're called. But actually, I mean, they're both are very well balanced, so I didn't have any issues with vibrations, which you sometimes get in bi-blade props, especially larger ones, but both performed very, very well. So that's a bit of my conclusion on prop testing. These two are my favorites, but I'm tending towards the bi-blade version to get the extra speed and top end that is quite a lot of fun when playing around with this Freestyle platform. That is my take on sub 250 Freestyle. So let me know what you think, guys. What do you think? Is 4-inch really the way to go? Is 5-inch better? Do you really want to stick with 5-inch? Yeah, leave a comment below, and thanks for watching, guys.